Today, I want to welcome my guest, Ashlee Bruggenschmidt. Ashlee is a principal at Sharon Elementary. She has been the principal there for 10 years. And let me just tell you, they have a lot of honors to their school. They are an exemplary A school 9 times, a 4-star school 3 times, and a promising practice school. Ashlee also was the Indiana Elementary Principal of the Year in 2019-2020 and the 2019 Indiana District 11 Principal of the Year. Now, I crossed paths with Ashlee way back when I was giving a presentation, and she and some of her teachers attended my presentation, and I immediately just connected with her realness. And so I can't wait for her just authenticity to show up today, and I'm really happy and honored to have you on the show, Ashlee.
Thank you, Kim, for inviting me. And I always love any time I spend with you because I always leave feeling so much better. Just your positive energy, it just radiates through you.
Oh, thank you. Actually, I think one of your teachers, and it might be a testimonial that we still use today, but one of your teachers had written like, I love Kim Strobel's contagious enthusiasm for life. And I was like, that's one of the highest compliments I've ever gotten.
Well, it's true. It is very true.
Yeah. So I specifically today want to discuss, Ashlee, the tragedy that has been in your life. You lost your daughter at a very young age, and you have had a lot of trauma and fires to walk through. And I want to talk to you about this very hard topic because I want to understand a little bit more about grief and trauma and what that's done in your life. But also, somehow, you are just really an amazing person who has shown us that as hard as life can get, it does go on, and you can learn to smile again, and you can learn to create moments of joy. And you've just really been an example of that. And one of the things that I'm not going to lie, I'm going to tell you that when I do the happiness research, and it tells us that only 10% of our long-term happiness comes from our external circumstances, right? So like, what kind of job do we have? What kind of losses have we endured? And I've really struggled with that piece. Like I mean, I'm positive that the death of your daughter eats up way more than 10% of the pie. But when we look at it holistically and we see all of the other things that you are now doing, that particular trauma has spurred you to do, I just can't really wait to pick your brain apart some of this research. And is that really true? And how does that resonate with you? I even worry about that when I'm on stage and I say, 10% of our long-term happiness comes from our external circumstances. And so in my head, Ashlee, I'm thinking like, yes, we can all recover from a divorce. We can all recover from losing our spouse. We can all recover from cancer or these kinds of things. But the one thing that gets stuck in my head really is, I don't understand how I could ever recover from the loss of a child.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to know, what are your thoughts on all of that? And I want you to tell the story about Kate and what happened to her first, and then let's get into your thinking on all of that.
Sure. Well, Kim, almost 5 years ago, my 11-year-old daughter, Kate, was killed in an ATV crash. She had played softball one morning in Jasper, and my husband was with her, and I was with my other daughter, Emma, and she was playing softball in Petersburg. So it was kind of a divide and conquer. Mom goes one place with one kid, dad goes with the other. And typically in the softball world, you play a game and then you sit out a game and then you play another game. Well, on this day, both girls won their first game and they had like a 4 or 5 hour break between games. So my husband, Eric, called me and said, hey, Kate wants to go with some of her teammates after they won their first game to one of their houses. They were just going to hang out. And he said, we'll meet him back here. What do you think? Well, kind of rewind back to Kate, is Kate was very, very anxious. She had a lot of separation anxiety. She maybe spent the night with 3 people in her 11 years. She was very much a homebody. She always wanted to be with at home, but most importantly, probably with me. She went to elementary school with me. She never really asked to do a lot. So when Eric told me that, I was so excited. I was like, yes, I'm so glad she wants to go with her friends, with her teammates. She was very social, but she just had that anxiety of she just liked being with us or us being with her. So I told him, I'm so glad she wants to go to a friend's house. Absolutely, it's good. So Eric met Emma and I at home, and we weren't home probably an hour and a half. And that phone call came in that they had told us that Kate had been in an accident and that we needed to report to the scene, which was in Spencer County. And I remember when Eric told me, I I thought maybe they were in a car accident. Like I just couldn't process what was going on. And he told me that the girls were riding ATVs. And I remember looking at him and saying, what did she do? Break her arm? Like she was so scared, Kim, to do anything. Like she was always just fearful of doing anything kind of out. Just, she was just anxious. That's the best word that I could think of.
So
And
your brain didn't even go. So when you got that phone call, because like I have a catastrophizing brain. So like my brain immediately goes to the like, I would have been like, oh my God, yeah, has something terribly happened. But your brain simply went to like, is this a broken arm or what happened here?
yes, I could not wrap my head around it. And even as we're driving to the scene, I could tell by my husband's response that something was really wrong. Well, I just started calling. I called 911 and I started begging Life Flight to make sure that they were going to get there. And I have a few friends that were physicians, and so I'm calling and I'm asking them like, will they be at the hospital? Like that she's hurt, and I needed people to be there to take care of her. And I remember getting to this when we arrived at the scene. Life Flight was never there. And the 911 operator, I still remember 5 years almost to date, her just telling me that it was going to be okay. And she's so calm. And she was, you know, she was just so reassuring. Even in that moment, I mean, I'm screaming and crying, like, I'm not seeing the helicopter. Why is it not here? And I still remember how just kind this lady on the phone was to me as I'm screaming, worrying about what was going on with my child.
And
And
are you at the scene right now?
no,
You're
no,
not
we're
even there.
still
You're in the
driving.
car.
Yeah, we're just driving. And
Okay.
I'm still not knowing, like, really how bad this is. And I look up and I never see a helicopter. When we arrive at the scene, people just started walking toward us. And I remember them telling us that she had died instantly. That she was dead whenever they called us. And
They did,
I
but
had
they
no
didn't tell
idea.
your husband that.
No, I had
Okay.
no idea. Yeah. My husband later told me that he was worried that she had died, but they had not said that for sure. And you talk about strength and courage, Kim. I ran down the road, miles down the road, and laid on the ground, and cars were stopping and asking what was wrong. I couldn't talk, I couldn't breathe. I'm physically sick. So you know, I couldn't face what happened that day. I couldn't face what happened for months. It's a parent's worst nightmare. You send your child to a friend's house to play, and they never come back. We think we're going to see her back on the softball field, and we never saw her again. And I had a 6-year-old in the car with me. Emma was with us driving to the scene, and it took a long time for I'm like, who took care of her, because I couldn't. And even at the scene, my husband saw Kate 4 or 5 times before I ever saw her, because he protected me from that. And I've talked to a lot of moms who have had similar experiences, whether a car accident or other traumatic events. And that's one thing that I'm thankful for. I'm thankful for the memories in my head of Kate are of the beautiful 11-year-old girl that I know, not the scenes that I had to see at the accident or at the scene. I was protected from those. Now, do I have nightmares of what I think that looked like? Yes. but in my heart, I still remember that 11-year-old girl. So I'm thankful that I don't have those those visions.
So you arrive on the scene and there's all of these people, and is there an ambulance there?
Oh yeah, there were ambulance, police officers, conservation officers, neighbors, and you have to think there were 4 other teammates. So there are 4 other 11-year-old girls who were at the scene, and there was a teammate that was on the back with her whenever it happened.
So she was driving.
So Kate was driving, and one of her teammates was on the back of an adult-size four-wheeler, and neither one of them were wearing a helmet. And 2 of her other teammates were in a side-by-side, and they were both wearing a helmet.
And so did they go up a hill and flip?
So, and that was something that was really hard for me, is because I wanted to know, like what happened. And they went from concrete to the grass, and it was a very like rugged ATV. And the investigating officer said that the tires, when it went from like blacktop to grass, that they just tried to like dig in, and that the four-wheeler just, it flipped over.
So it flipped over, and I guess, did it break her neck? Is that what happened?
Nope. That she, whenever it flipped over, the girl in the back jumped off, and Kate stayed on, and the back tire hit her in the head, and she died instantly from massive cerebral disruption, blunt force trauma to her head. All of the trauma was to her head. She still had her softball chest guard, her heart guard that we would have her wear. She was still wearing that, but all of the trauma was to her head. And like I said, as her parents, we didn't even know she was on a four-wheeler. My main concern was they have an in-ground pool, and that they were going to play a softball game in 4 hours, and I didn't want her to swim and get tired. And I
Yes.
tell my parents all the time, I wish they would have went swimming that day.
Yes. Yes. And that's probably, you know, I mean, I imagine that you have thought of a million, like, why couldn't they have had a softball game an hour later like they always did? Like, you run through this scenario of all of and I'll just give you an example. And please know I'm not comparing my dog at all to your daughter, but literally George jumped off the back of the truck and herniated a disc, my dog, and had to have this spinal surgery, and he almost lost his life over it. And I kept saying, why did I have to go to Dairy Queen that night to get a Blizzard? Because if I hadn't gone to Dairy Queen that night to get a Blizzard, he would have never jumped off the back of the truck like he always does when he gets home. Like, I kept going through all of that. And so I can imagine that that's what you did. Like, why just one little decision changed everything?
Those what ifs, like I would what if myself to death. What
Yeah.
if we didn't let her go to the friend's house? What if the softball game was an hour? What if this? What if we wouldn't have played in that tournament? And I had a good friend who, and a police officer, and we were just talking about trauma, and he just said, it just is. And he would, Ashley, it just is. It just is. And I would talk through it, and I would talk through it, because you want to what if yourself to death.
Yeah. Yeah. But do you believe that this was like almost a predestined trajectory? Like, have you been able to surrender to the fact that life just plays out exactly, unfortunately, like it's already kind of predetermined? Or what are your thoughts on that?
Kim, that is a struggle that I have, trying to figure out. I always joke and say that God and I have a love-hate relationship sometime. And that was a huge struggle, because as a mom, and you see all kinds of things as an administrator, people who murder their kids, people who don't take care of and neglect their kids, and you work hard to keep kids safe every day. And in the end, my job every day is to keep 750 kids safe, and I couldn't keep my own kids safe. Or I work all the time with these people who maybe struggle or neglect their kids, or you see, like I said, people who murder their kids. And I don't do any of those things, and my kid still died.
Yeah.
And it was Like I said, God and I have a love-hate relationship
Mm-hmm.
sometimes. And my husband is the voice of reason in that a lot of times. And, people would say, that there was some predetermined, that God has some plan.
Yeah,
And
I don't like that whole God
I,
has a plan or
I,
a reason. I don't like
I,
that language at all. Don't
I,
tell
I
me there's,
I don't.
yeah, I don't like that.
So
Yeah.
I really just believe that, and I don't think that God creates the accidents. I just think He's there to welcome them when bad things happen.
Yeah. Yeah. That's one of the
And
things
that's
that,
what I have to tell myself.
right. Because I think like one of the things that really triggers me is when someone says, God has a plan. God has a reason behind. Like, I want to say, don't tell me that, I don't even know how to talk it through, but I just know that when somebody says that, I think that's the last thing you should say to some. I just, that's my own personal feeling.
Right. Like, and it's easier for someone to say when God's plan wasn't taking their 11-year-old daughter,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know.
That's exactly right.
And
Yeah.
I had the same conversation with priests right after, because I needed someone to explain this to me, how something like this can happen. And I actually got upset with one of the first priests that we met with, because that's kind of what he was trying to explain to me. And it wasn't okay. Like, I couldn't accept that.
Yeah. So then you're at the scene of the accident. And are you okay with me walking through this with you?
Sure, absolutely.
You're at the scene. Is she still right where she was right after the accident, or had they moved her?
They had not moved her. And like I said, I ran down the road, and so I never saw Kate at the scene until the coroner got there, and I helped my husband and my family. Um, and I mean, they put her, in a bag, and I helped them put her in the car to take to the funeral home. So I actually never saw Kate until um, the showing at the cemetery, or at the funeral home, the private one, for our family. My husband saw her at the scene and identified her, and he saw her twice at the funeral home, and he just told me that she wasn't perfect yet, that she had to be perfect before I could see her. And I respected that, and I am so grateful for him for doing that, because she was perfect when I had the
Mm,
chance to see her, and I
yes.
didn't have that trauma. So I did not see her at the scene. And actually, the emergency response team, Eric told me that they had told him they had her covered up from the waist up, and they told him that they did not want him to lift up the sheet because of the trauma and things like that. And he was grateful for that advice. So he just said he could, see her feet and her legs and rub her belly and things like that.
Yes. So walk me through. So that was the year, was that 2015?
Yes, July 2015.
Okay. So you go through the funeral. I mean, like, walk me through what your life has been like since that day. Like, walk me through what was it like after this happened? What were you like, Ashlee? What
Mhm.
emotions did you go through? What was the grief like? What is it like for you today? Like, just speak to me about this topic of grief and your journey within it and through it.
Kim, the person I am today is definitely not the person that I was 5 years ago, before Kate was killed. I even think the person that I am today is not the same person I was before you are a school administrator. Your experiences, your life experiences, they change you. You're never going to be the same person, good, bad, or indifferent. They change you. As far as Kate's funeral, I couldn't do anything. I couldn't function. My sister, my friends, my staff, they helped plan her funeral. I couldn't even take a shower. They would put me in the shower. They actually, I mean, I remember them sh- washing my hair. I could not function. I could not get out of bed. The first night, was awful, because I couldn't come to terms that it was really true. And I remember trying to go to sleep and waking up and running up to her room, and I'm destroying her room. And I know that she's not there, but I couldn't come to grips with that she wasn't there. And I just kept telling my family that I had to take care of her, that who was taking care of her right now, that that's my job and she's not here. And how do I know someone's going to take care of her, and who's taking care of her now? And it was rough. Those, I mean, the year, 2 years, 3 years it is. But initially, I really believe that your body just shuts down to protect you. And that's actually how I believe that I was able to even function, was that your body just shuts down to protect you from all of the pain. And the support system that I had, like I said, my sister, my family, her classmates, our friends, the softball organization and the softball community, they did amazing things for us. And I really believe they're the ones that pulled me from the ashes. And I started just seeing the beauty in Kate's life. And, would I give up? Would I rather not have her for any years or 11 years? Well, I would absolutely rather have her for 11 years to never have her at all. And I remember us talking about that, and there's the difference and the different stories that about Kate during those 11 years. And it just started to make me grateful of the time that I had for her. And I really believe that just that community support, I do not see how anyone can survive a trauma without a support system. And this community, they literally are the ones that helped me find a purpose. And it was probably 2 days whenever, you have to do her obituary, and we had to say, what do you want money to go to? What do you want people to donate to? And I was like, I have no idea. I don't know. I can't make this decision. And some of our friends said, what about a playground, out of the softball complex where she practiced? And I was like, yeah, that sounds great. And another friend said, well, why don't we call it Play for Kate? And someone else drew angel wings. Everything that Play for Kate is, it wasn't Ashlee Bruggenschmidt's idea. It was this community and her friends and her classmates. And so, the foundation, the name, the playground, the scholarships, that all came from friends and from the community and those relationships with people. And then that started giving me a purpose to get out of bed in the morning. Okay, I have to go let's go look at the playground. We need to look at playgrounds. We need to come up with colors. And it just, Play for Kate became my therapy of how I could heal. And as a mom, that's your job every day, right? I do stuff for my now 12-year-old Emma, and you do stuff for your kids every day. And Play for Kate was my way of continuing to do something for Kate, to honor her and her friends and the community. And it was just my way to heal.
So the community, is it fair to say that the social support system that you had in place helped you redirect your energy towards the celebration of who Kate was and what she represented for the 11 years that she was here and a part of your life?
Yes. Yes. I want to talk about something else, Kim, though, when we were talking about those first few days and those weeks. Of course, you can't sleep. And so I read every book that I could on trauma and loss. And I would read a book a night. And I remember my sister saying, Ashlee, why are you reading these books? So I would read a book, Radical Survivor, and it was about a mom who lost her husband and all of her kids and in an airplane crash. Or I would read Choosing Hope, from the teacher who survived Sandy Hook. And she was like, why are you doing this to yourself? And I did it because I needed to see that people could survive this hell that I was living in right now. And it validated what was going on in my head. So when I read about this mom who thought she was crazy and had ADHD and could not function, that's the way that I felt. So when I read that the mom in this book felt this way, then I knew maybe I wasn't crazy. And so those books would validate my feelings of what I was going through. But then also I could see that they survived. Like I needed to know that I could survive this hell, that people really do can survive this. Soul Survivor, that I think was Holly Dunn's book, um, Option B. And all of those books talked about, grief and loss and how they persevered. And they would talk about how helping others helped them heal. And that's kind of the same way I just have carried that with me through Play for Kate. And whenever I really struggle, when I'm getting really sad or I'm really anxious, and I will throw myself into to Play for Kate or doing things for ATV safety, just because it helps me heal.
Yeah, that's so good. I think what I'd like you to do is email me the top 5 books, if you can pick 5, because I think a lot of people who are listening to this have endured some type of tragedy or loss, and it's maybe not as severe as, for all of us. I mean, I'm not going to lie, Ashlee, it's hard to talk to you because in my brain, I'm doing that whole like, I don't ever want this to be me, and I don't ever want to have to lose a child. And it's like one of the most painful, vulnerable subjects to talk about. And when you talk about it, it starts to make a person kind of like paranoid, because I'm like, I don't ever want to have to go through this. I see the grief on your face. And but yet I know that when we have examples of other people who have endured the worst of the worst and have somehow made it out the other side, it does give us hope. And so I think this is a really good tool that you just shared with my audience that worked for you, that might be helpful to some of them. And I'm relating it like, when I had my relapse of panic disorder, which was just really difficult for me to go through. I too started reading success stories again of people who couldn't walk to their mailbox like I couldn't, but eventually found their way out. So my brain works like that too, which is, please show me some examples that this is possible to survive and live again. And that might be really helpful to my audience, just to have a resource of some books that you might recommend that can help those that are struggling right now.
Sure, absolutely. And one other thing, Kim, that I want to talk about is I had another friend who she asked me to meet someone at Starbucks, and it was like within a week after Kate had been killed. And it was another mother whose child had been murdered. And I told her that I would. Well, of course, the day came and I didn't think that I could go. And she came and picked me up. And I still remember her opening the car door, and she's like walking me in the Newburgh Starbucks to meet this mom. And I couldn't hold my head up, had my head on the table the whole time this lady was talking to me. And now I think of how just rude and disrespectful that sounds, but I didn't have the strength to hold my head up. I could listen, but I couldn't look at her or hold my head up. And she was talking about me. She was telling me a story about what happened to her daughter, and her daughter had been murdered by her ex-husband. And she's talking to me about grief and loss and forgiveness. And she's saying the words forgiveness. And I remember looking up at her. I lifted my head up and thought, this lady is an angel. Like, I don't see how she can even be sitting here talking to me about this. And that gave me hope also, was to see another mom whose daughter had been killed, and that she could still survive. And I asked her how she got through and what were things that she did. And since that day, there's kind of a group of us that when something tragic happens in our community or another mom loses a child, that we all reach out to them. And I have moms who I have never met face to face, but I've exchanged hundreds of 1 o'clock in the morning text messages with them because they're having flashbacks of that night that they found out their child died, or they don't think they can get through. And just trying to help each other. So that goes back to a different type of support system of people that I never even knew existed, but how
Yeah.
they help.
Yeah, because they're evidence that you, I guess, can somehow make it. It's amazing to me that you were able to even get yourself to go. Like, how necessary was that for you to go, even though probably everything in your body and mind screamed you didn't want to go? Like you said, you almost had to be just dragged in there, and you didn't have the energy to even lift your head, but there was something inside of you that heard her her message to you, and that
Mhm,
began to resonate with you.
mhm. And I'm so glad to this day that my friend had made me go, and for her.
Yeah, that's so, see, this is really helpful because, like I've told you, I have someone in my family who has endured a very terrible tragedy. And to be honest, Ashlee, I think I even reached out to you a few months ago and asked you for a couple of book recommendations. And I won't send them because I'm so scared that it's going to be like, you haven't lost a child, so don't be sending me shit that's going to help me. Like, I'm a little worried that it's what, I don't even know what the term is, but are you saying that, like, I should send the books and we should, as friends and people who love these people, do things that maybe push them a little bit out of their uncomfort zone? Or, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm scared to send the books because I don't want it to be like, hey, let me tell you what to do, even though I've never lost a child. But I feel like what you're saying is a little different.
Sorry, you were cutting out just a little bit, but um, I do, what is it, Brene Brown, get uncomfortable or get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And several of my teachers came to me and said, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do. Or they would apologize. Like, I don't want to say Kate's name. I don't want to, just the fear of doing the wrong thing, of saying the wrong thing. And I remember telling them that I want them to talk about her. I want them to ask about her. I want them, if they have a book to read, if they have ideas, I'm not going to forget that she died. I'm never going to forget what happened. And I don't not I don't want to. I don't want anyone to forget her. And if they have some idea that they think might help, then absolutely I want to hear about it.
Yeah.
Um, Dr. Schrader at Easter Seals is a dear friend of mine, and he has been amazing at helping me heal. And has he ever lost a child? No. But a lot of the things that he talks about and he has helped me with, just is about just taking of self-care, things that I knew that I always stunk at. I'm always terrible at balance. I would always work too much. I feel like, okay, I might be killing it at work, but I'm not being a very good mom right now, or I'm being a terrible wife. And um, after Kate was killed, I really had to look at how I can be healthy holistically. He would talk to
Mm.
me about exercise, eating right, getting the right amount of sleep. We talked about journaling, and that was a huge thing. And I still do a gratitude journal to this day. I even do it sometimes with my staff. And trust me, that gratitude journal at the beginning was rough to find anything that you are grateful for. And at the beginning, I would just write letters to Kate. Sometimes I wrote
Mm.
letters to God, that um, or I would journal, or it would be a song that I heard, or a quote that someone that I saw in a book, or something that someone said. And I still do that almost 5 years later, Kim, is I will, whether it's music or a quote or in that, I still journal, just to, it just helps me.
Yeah, that's
And
actually one of the top things that a person can do to both process and to get their brain back to positive or neutral. Like, journaling is one of the, really, it's very helpful for anybody who is struggling with any area of their life.
So your family member, I wouldn't say that you would give them books to say, here, this is what you need to do, but to say, hey, I know, of a mom who has went through a traumatic loss, and these books and this journal helped her. And you can give her my number, my email. I would be
Yes.
glad to talk to her. And
Yes.
even the moms that we exchange messages or chat with now, none of us are telling each other how to grieve. We're just there listening to each other and offering support and telling them, hey, yeah, I do that, or I've experienced that, or this worked for me.
So
Really just trying to support
yeah.
each other.
I feel like the message that I'm hearing that I want to make sure my audience is hearing is that I have been staying safe because I've been worried about but about making a mistake, or but what you're really saying is, like, yeah, do it in a very delicate way, but like, don't just stay silent and avoid it. And that's kind of what I've been doing. And what you're
Mhm.
saying is step in and really try to be there for that person, even if you don't know what to do, or even if you're scared of doing whatever it is, that you still need to show up for that person.
Absolutely, 100%. Because I'm able to
Mm.
show up to work every day, and I was able to help get HEA 1200 passed and do the scholarships and play for Kate, because I had people that showed up every day.
Mm.
And it was uncomfortable. I know we had uncomfortable conversations, and I know probably showing up for me on some days is hard, because some days I'm still angry. I'm not very fun to be around sometimes, because
Yeah.
I'm pissed that my 11-year-old daughter was killed, and I had no say in anything that happened other than saying that she could go to a friend's house. And but they helped me work through it, and they helped continue to get me to push through.
This
And so
is, yeah, this
it's
is really
showing up
good.
as
It's,
being present.
yeah, it's really good because as audience members, if we're listening to this story, I want you to really think, is there someone that you know or have been thinking about that you just play it safe rather than leaning into that discomfort? And so having these conversations, this helps people know what is needed, and it's really helpful for you to share that with us. Now, I know that everybody's grieving timeline, if there isn't even a timeline, because I think it never ends. I know my own counselor, dealing with some of the griefs that I've had, he kind of described it as a train. And he said, a train has multiple cars, and you might have 7 cars on today's grief train, and tomorrow there's only 2, and the next day there's 15. Like, it's not that you ever get to the end of the grief. It will always, you'll revisit it from time to time, or a lot of the time. But for you and for anybody who's listening, Ashlee, who maybe has lost a child, who does need a little bit of hope, like, in my head, I'm just thinking, Ashlee, when could you breathe again? When did you find yourself knowing that you weren't going to spend the rest of your life completely miserable? Because that's what you would think. Like, I'm going to spend every waking hour for the rest of my life feeling like I do right now.
I'm actually glad that you said that, Kim, because I remember having this conversation, saying that I struggled every day, especially, that first month, those first 2 months, the first 6 months. So I would get up and I would fight like hell to get through every day. And I remember looking at my friend saying, just to go to bed. And I'm doing the same thing, that there is no end to this vicious cycle, that there is no end to this pain, that I'm like, okay, if I survive this minute, if I can survive the next 5 minutes, if I can survive the next hour. And I would do it day after day, just to keep reliving the same thing of what happened, how did this happen, why did this happen. And I didn't feel like it was ever going to end. And I would say that first year, I felt like that pretty much the whole time. I um, I had a really, really hard time. And to be totally transparent, Kim, I've never taken any medicine for since Kate was killed. Nothing for anxiety, nothing for depression. Um, and right after it was over, my family called the physician and was like, she has to have medicine to sleep. She's got to have medicine. And I didn't want to do that. And luckily finding a good therapist, a good counselor, and being able to focus more on like just the holistic things, helped. And I go back to that support system and to Play for Kate. Once we started building the playground and really got into the working towards the law, the helmet law, I could start seeing some light in the tragedy, and the scholarships, and I could start seeing Kate and her friends, and the way they would continue to honor her. And it just a shift in my head of, instead of feeling about all the what ifs and all focusing about all the opportunities that we were given, from Kate, from having Kate, and from the community.
Yeah, and I want to talk about that, because it's important to talk about the wins that have come from this tragedy. And so we have the Play for Kate Foundation, which I want you to speak a little bit about that. Tell us what exactly that is and how it works. I mean, I know what it is, but my audience doesn't. So tell us about that.
Play for Kate is the foundation that we started days after Kate was killed. And we built a playground in Boonville, Indiana. There wasn't a playground at the softball field, so that was the first thing. And it was dedicated on Kate's birthday. So within around 6-7 months from Kate was killed, we were able to raise enough money from this amazing community to build that playground. We are a 501c3. We're ran totally by volunteers. No one gets paid. We have a softball tournament, a basketball tournament, and a golf scramble, because Kate was very much about sports. And that's how we raise our money. Volunteers work at all of those things. We have given away 15 scholarships to graduating seniors in the tri-state area, lots of different schools. I don't think we've been up to Tell City or Perry County yet, so we'll have to encourage some of them to make sure they apply. We gave one to a senior at Tecumseh this year, one at Castle, and one at Boonville. But we don't just give them to Warwick County schools. We give them to anyone. And we get around 50 to 70 applicants every year.
And what are you looking for? What kind of person receives this scholarship on behalf of Kate Bruggenschmidt?
Did you say, what do we look for?
Yeah, like what do you look for, and what kind of person receives the scholarship?
Kate was very much about helping other people. She was a great classmate, a teammate, a great friend. She was always about putting other people before herself. So we really try to look for those characteristics in the applicants. She had a great attitude. She worked hard. It's not about if you made straight A's. Typically the essay that people write, that's usually the determining factor of who gets the Play for Kate scholarship, is if they can portray the traits that made Kate who she was. Then,
so she embodied those traits, and at such a young age to be that caring and service oriented and empathetic and caring at such a young age. I mean, those are traits that sometimes take a really long time to develop, but she embodied that from early on. Is that what you're telling me?
Yes. And I don't think we realized it near as much as until after she was killed, when her teachers, her coaches, other parents, complete strangers would tell us stories that we never knew about her.
Yeah.
And that kind of helped us come up with
because you're right up and
criteria.
close with her, so you don't see it, but everybody else is seeing what she's doing behind the scenes.
Yes.
And for anybody who wants to donate, it's playforkate.com, right?
Yes. Yep. Our website is playforkate.com, or we have the Play for Kate Facebook page also.
Yes.
And then the last thing, of course, is the helmet law, the
Yes.
HEA 1200. Kate was number 12. She was actually wearing her softball jersey, number 12, the day she was killed. So The law does carry her number. Some people call it Kate's Law, but that is mandating that any kid under the age of 18 on both public or private ground in Indiana must wear a helmet on an ATV.
Gosh, Ashlee. So
And
I'm
Kim, we have only had 2 deaths since, and that's still too many. But there were we were having lots of child fatalities in Indiana prior to Kate's Law, and at the time, State Representative Arnold carried 1,200. He was from Crawford County, around Perry County area.
yeah,
And
Lloyd
everyone
Arnold.
told us, yes, that we would not get it passed, or that, they tried to discourage me that it'll take forever, it won't happen. And in less than a year, the bill was passed. And in almost 3 years, we've had 2 child deaths. And I know the day Kate was killed, there was another girl killed the same day as Kate on an ATV. And the day before I testified at the House, there was a young boy in Pike County who was killed on an ATV. And that was my opening statement to the House. And the day before I testified at the Senate, a 5-year-old girl in Posey County was killed on an ATV. And that was my opening statement to the Senate. So we were having lots of child fatalities. And so the helmet laws has been a huge deterrent, and it is saving kids' lives. But then also we have Safety Sam, the ATV safety robot that we've built and patented, that's going around and talking to communities about ATV safety. So the law, great, good laws and good enforcement definitely will save lives, but we know that education is key.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I know too that some of you who are listening may even be thinking like, I need to reach out to Ashlee, and I know how open you are to that. And so I'm actually going to spell your name for everybody, because what a name you have there, Bruggenschmidt. If they want to find you on Facebook, is that okay, Ashlee?
Absolutely.
So it's ASHLEE.
Or Kim, they can just message Play for Kate if they want on
Oh,
Facebook.
okay.
That
There
might
you
be
go.
easier.
Yeah, there you go. Just message Play for Kate on Facebook. And
Mhm.
then Ashlee will get that message. So, Ashlee, what's life like for you today?
Well, I would say it's a roller coaster, especially with COVID and whenever you're home, when you're supposed to be home all the time and not near as busy, because staying busy and, like I said, helping others is always helping me heal. And whenever you have to stay at home and you have a lot of time on your hands, and you see a lot of negativity, it's that can get you down. And my daughter Emma and I talk about that a lot, that we're going to focus on the positive, that when after the death of your 11-year-old daughter, a virus doesn't scare me,
Mm-mm.
because I believe that is, if there's anything worse than enduring the death of your 11-year-old daughter, I don't ever want to experience that. And that is the most traumatic thing that I know that someone can experience, and I would not wish that on my worst enemy.
Mm-mm.
And we call it our angel mamas, that we would it's a club that no one wants to be a part of. But I am so grateful for those relationships, for those people in my life that have been able to pull me from the ashes. I would never be able to come back into Sharon Elementary School if it wasn't for my staff.
Mm.
Whenever I was awarded the Elementary Principal of the Year, that award is for them. I remember looking at them. I could not come back into Sharon Elementary. I took the year off as the principal because I couldn't take care of myself. How could I lead a school? How could I take care of these kids when I couldn't even take care of myself? And if it wasn't for them and believing in me and continuing to cheer me on and to support what I'm trying to do with Play for Kate, and in the school corporation, how many employers would allow you to do that, to continue to advocate for kids to be safe, but also to still be an administrator and support what you're trying to do. So today I'm grateful. I'm grateful for the time that I had with Kate. I know that she made me a better person. I know that she makes a lot of us better. And I'm just grateful for the relationships of my friends, my staff, and this community that continues to believe in me, because I'm able to get up every day because of them.
Yeah, I'm interviewing Ashlee, and she's in her office, and I'm looking right now. She has a ceiling tile that's I'm assuming it says "Play for Kate" because it looks like a softball field with the "Play for Kate" colors. So that hangs over your head in your office as you're going about your day.
And
And
my art teacher made that for me. So just another
oh,
example of things that your staff does for you. So yeah, my art teacher painted that.
so is it fair to say, Ashlee, that are you happy?
I am happy, Kim. You can find, you can find happiness through the pain, through the trauma. Um, am I going to say I'm happy every single day? No, I don't think any of us could say that, but I am happy.
And that in itself, Ashlee, just there is somebody listening to this who needed to hear that, because they feel like they will never, ever smile again. They will never feel happy ever again. And to hear your story and to hear you be able to say those words, it really does plant a pathway of hope for people who just need a teeny tiny dot of hope right now. So
Well,
powerful.
and I was, like I said, I've been blessed to have people who have have helped me find that hope, because I had lost hope too.
Yes, yes. So I'm going to end this with a few questions. I like to do these rapid fire questions now at the end that are just kind of
Okay.
fun and lighthearted. But before I give you those questions, I want to know, what do you feel like? And I bet you could come up with 100 things. But what having been Kate's mother and the gift that she was to you and your family and that she continues to be today, but what is one of the best gifts that Kate as a human being gave to you as just a person?
I'm sorry, you cut out just a little bit.
Yeah.
What is
What
Kate's
is
gift?
what was one of the greatest gifts that of being Kate's mother?
I would say of her teaching me to be selfless.
Mm.
That she was very, very selfless. And, thinking back to even before her accident, um, I think there's times where we're all selfish, but she was so giving to others, and she put everybody else before her. And it made me even reflect on my leadership and being more of a servant leader, and just making me better. So I would say her heart, and her just being so selfless.
Gosh, wow. To be such a little human being and to have that, wow. It says a lot about who she was and who she is and what she represents. So thank you so much. Are you ready for the rapid fire questions?
I'm sorry, you cut out again. Did you say,
It's
do I have any
okay. Yep.
questions?
Are you ready for the rapid fire questions?
I,
Question number 1, are you binge watching any show right now?
I just finished binge watching Sweet Magnolias, and I loved it.
Oh, I'll add that to my list. I haven't
It's
watched
good.
that. Okay. Question number 2, what is a luxury that you have in your life right now?
Oh, well, I just got back from the beach, so I always think any time at the beach is a luxury, and I'm going back there in another month. So I need
Oh,
beach therapy. Beach therapy is my luxury.
got it. Got it. Number 3, what is something that people really don't know about you?
That I'm pretty athletic. I don't know if a lot of people would know that, thinking of a principal, but I am very athletic. I love all kinds of sports. basketball, volleyball, softball, track. I am a sports fanatic.
Awesome. Awesome. And number 4, your favorite food?
Probably pizza.
Ha! That's what the last person said. Pizza. Mine's crab legs. I love crab legs.
My daughter Emma loves crab legs too. I
Those are
said she
hard to
better marry a
find.
rich guy. She's
Yeah,
not a cheap date.
exactly. She's not a cheap date. And then the last question is, how is Ashlee reaching for more joy in her life right now?
You know, trying to slow down actually and just enjoying the time together. I think before I tried to fill my time to keep my head busy. And through the virus, and Dr. Schrader would always talk to me about whenever you're hiking and just kind of finding silence and healing in solitude. And that has really helped, just trying to slow down and enjoy the time that you have with everyone and just enjoy your time.
I love that. It's actually something that I struggle with very much so. I too keep my mind and body very busy. And so I am trying to embrace that a little bit more. I went outside last night at like 8 o'clock because we've had some nice evenings in Southern Indiana. And I did not take my phone, and I just sat in the lawn chair and just felt the breeze for like 10 minutes, and I too am trying to be a little more intentional about that. So I love
Mhm.
that.
Yes.
Well, Ashlee, I tell you, just you sharing your story, the good, the bad, the hard, the painful, as well as the fact that you continue to choose hope day after day. It's really just incredible that you took us along for this today. And I'm really honored that you allowed me to ask you some of these hard questions and just to share about Kate and who she was as a human being and how she continues to contribute to the world today.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity, Kim. Thank you for letting me tell her story, and thank you for what you do, because I love your quotes that you'll put. I'll be scrolling through Facebook and I'll see a Kim Strobel quote, and it will make me smile. And I just appreciate all that you do for focusing on happiness and self-care, because it is important. So I appreciate your time and you asking me, and I'll make sure that I send you those books. And if you
Yes,
need anything else, you let me know.
I sure will. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, Kim. Bye-bye.